All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How are we doing this morning? I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Welcome to Money Talk. Welcome to Money Talk, guys. It's going to be an incredible day today. We're going to talk about a few things today. So, I will bring down the queue. All right. So, welcome to Money Talk, everybody. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Happy Friday. As you know, like I told you guys today, we're going to break down a lot of the understanding about the concept and why the concept is important to learn, right? Just a quick reminder for everyone, just so you know, every Monday through Friday, right? Monday through Friday, we do these money talks, right? And every Mondays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays at 12 p.m., we do the campaigners orientation where we share with you guys about our orientation. Every Sunday, we also have another money talk where we break down the concept some more. So today, I'm going to actually talk to you guys about a financial plan and a financial goal, right? And it's important for us to have a financial plan with a financial goal. So now, what is the financial plan and what is the financial goal? See, everything in life, you have to know why you want something. And the next thing you got to know is how to achieve it, right? And when we look at all of these things, we got to think to ourselves, well, why do we want to achieve some of these things? Why is it that we want to accomplish some of these things? And why is it that important to do so? And until we know how to, then we can never accomplish some of these things, right? So when you think about a financial plan, right? Let's think about the financial plan. Now, what kind of plan would you want when it comes to your finances, right? You got to have a plan to do what? Have a solid financial foundation, right? You got to have a solid financial foundation. And having a solid financial foundation requires you to do some of the following things. You got to put yourself in a position where you put together the proper protection that you and your family need. You got to put in place where not only proper protection, but also you got to make sure that you have your debt under control, right? Debt management. You then also got to make sure that you create an emergency fund. And not only just create an emergency fund, you also got to put yourself in a position where you know where to invest your money. All right. So we got to also do these things in order to win so that way we could, like I said, be in a position to always win. Now, the plan, that is the plan. What I just talked to you about is your financial plan. But the problem is that we never had, no, I meant that was the goal. The plan is that you got to have a way to do it. So, what's the goal? Well, the goal was always to create a solid financial foundation, right? And the plan is the wealth formula, right? So, without knowing why, then the how won't come. So everybody always say, well, Ken, how can I create a financial foundation? What must I do? How do I do it? It's simple, guys. You got to follow the steps as what is the wealth formula. Because here's the thing. They always say that creating a financial foundation, right? Using the wealth formula. When you add these two together, that equals financial freedom, right? When you add these two together, it equals financial freedom. So the question is, do you want financial freedom? Do you deserve financial freedom? What is financial freedom? Why is it important for us to learn about financial freedom? So let's talk about that, right? That's what we're going to talk about. And that's what we're going to break down even some more. Let's start with the financial foundation first. When we talk about putting together proper protection, well, let's talk about the three events that you cannot plan for, right? Let's talk about the three events that you cannot predict when it will happen to you. And you hope that when it does happen to you, you are prepared. Now, these three events that can happen to you without any prediction of when. The three things are number one, write this down. Number one, you cannot predict when you will die. Nope, you can't predict when you die. If you can, I want you to not tell me when I'm gonna die. Okay? But if you cannot predict when you're gonna die, then what are the four things you must have in place if you prematurely die? Number one, you must have life insurance. You must own life insurance in order to protect yourself and your family against if you prematurely die. When you own life insurance, you don't own life insurance because you think about just dying. You got to own life insurance because you think about the die method, where you calculate all your debt. You calculate what is your income, times that by 10. What is the balance on your mortgage? And what is the educational planning for your children? That's how you own life insurance, and with those kind of understanding. So owning life insurance is not about just, oh, I want to own a life insurance. No, you're going to own a life insurance because you did a die method. You figure out what is your debt amount, what is your income times 10, or your annual net income times 10. You're going to calculate what is the balance on your mortgage. And you're also going to look at the fact that what is the educational planning for each one of your child based upon the tuition of what the college may cost, now or later on. And then you put those things in place, right? Now, when you talk about the second thing you must own when you think about premature dying is that you must own a final expense insurance. Why? Final expense insurance and life insurance are completely two different things. Life insurance does not pay out immediately if you passed away, but a final expense insurance pays out within 48 hours of you passing. So you need something that will be available to take care of all your funeral expenses if something was to happen to you. The third thing you must have in place is a will. You got to have a will in place. Why? Because the will is not just about who's going to get what position and who's going to get not this position. It's about, well, do you have your health directive in place? Do you have your power of attorney in place? All of these things are important to have a will. And then the fourth thing you must have if you prematurely die is if you got to have a trust. Now you may say, well, Ken, I already have a will. Why do I need a trust? Well, the will is almost like if you was to use life insurance as an example. You always own life insurance because you want to protect something. So the trust is like the person, and the will is like the person, and the trust is like the life insurance. So everything that the will owns or have possession of, the only way you could protect all of that that's inside of your will that you want to go to your family is through a trust. So that's why the trust plays a very important role, especially living trust, right? So it's really important that we have these four things in place if you prematurely die, because this is really, you see, life insurance protect you. It protects your family from paying your debts. It protects your family from missing out on your income for the next 10 years. It protects your family from losing their house. It pays off the mortgage, and it protects your family from the kids have to suffer or worry how they're going to pay for school later on, right? That's what it protects. But the trust protects all the assets that you own, your car, your home, your jewelry, all these things, all these assets. It protects it. So the trust and life insurance do the same thing. They just protect different things in different times in your life. Now, when you think about disability, this is another thing that you can't predict. So because you cannot predict disability, then what must you have in place? You must make sure that you have long-term care in place. You got to have long-term care in place. You get long-term care as a rider on your life insurance, or you could also get it as a standalone, right? So when you own long-term care insurance, right? These are the type of money that will be available to you if you become disabled, where you can't perform two daily acts of living and you need someone to assist you, or you need money, because this money will help you to truly, truly understand how to, survive at times when you don't have someone to do it for you. right? Or you don't want to become a burden to your children, right? You don't want to be that parent like your kids are stuck, they can't travel because you have to be here to take care of them, and you almost guilt them, right? You don't want to do that. You don't want to be that person, right? You want your family to be able to live their life, and you put the things in place so that way you don't become that burden to them, right? So that's why it's important to have long-term care in place for disability reasons, so that way that money could be available when at the time it's needed. Now, when it talks about health problems, right, you got to understand what kind of insurance do you have? Do you have a HMO? Do you have a PPO? Do you know the difference between the two? HMO insurance just means that you can only go to doctors and hospitals within that network, right? You can't really pick and choose who you could use. But if you have a PPO, you could choose whatever doctor, specialist, hospital that you wish to go to, right? And that's very, very important. Now, another good thing about having PPO versus HMO is that HMO is very cheap, sometimes free, depending on how you get it. If you get it through the state, or you could own it, and it's very cheaper than a PPO. But PPO are quite costly. But like I said, you get the option of choosing who pick and choose who you want. But another thing with health problems too, guys, is that if you need Medicare, right? When do you enroll into Medicare? You got to enroll into Medicare later on as the year progresses at 65. So 3 months before or 3 months after, when you enroll, you got to enroll in Part A and B first before you get access to Part B, C, and D. And, a lot of things about, like I said, when you think about Medicare versus Medicaid, right, you could know the difference between HMO and PPO as well. So these events is what we call proper protection. And why must you have it? Now, let's look at another thing. Debt management. A lot of people understand that they have debt, but they always think about ways, you know, um, what you gotta do about debt, right? What you gotta do with debt? And when you look at your debt, you gotta think about your debt and say, well, how can I win? Right? How can I win? You can't win through consolidation, and you can't win through bankruptcy. I'll tell you right now, both of those things are gonna hurt your credit. But you must learn how can you pay down your debt and build up your credit at the same time. And if you could do those two things and tackle it head on, then think about how much more leverage you'll have to have credit and use it to acquire some assets, right? We know that we live in a society now where you could leverage credit to acquire more assets. And the way you do that is by paying down debt and building up credit. And we show you how to do that because it's very easy. The next thing that you got to understand is about emergency fund. Why must you have an emergency fund, right? Your emergency fund is important to have in place because, yes, emergency will happen. Unexpected times will happen. Those, oh my God moments will happen. It's just a matter of when, right? And when they do happen, do you have enough to deal with those situations and those unexpected circumstances? So when it's all said and done, right? What must you do in order to have an emergency fund? You gotta live on a budget. You must live on a budget in order to create an emergency fund. You got to use that 50, 20, 30 budgeting formula so that way you can really maximize your efforts and really start putting aside 5, 10, 15%, right? And then if you could save 20% and put away 5% out of that 20% towards an emergency fund, and only spend 5%, but still able to save 10%, then you're going to be in a better position. But budgeting, if you're not living your life with a budget, then you will always overspend. You cannot track spending and think that's budgeting. No, you're just tracking what you spend. And the thing is that you got to know how much you can spend before you spend. And that's the reason why many of us today spend more than we earn, because we don't know what we can spend before we spend. And by the time we track it at the end of the month, you realize that you overspend. So that's what been throwing a lot of people's budget out of the loop. And that's the reason why we got to know beforehand, what can I spend, right? Now, when it comes to investment, guys, investment require us to understand a few things, right? Let's talk about a few things you got to understand about investment. Investment is not about where can you put the money. It's not about where you put the money. You could put your money in stocks and make money. You could put your money in your 401ks and make money. You could put your money in a Roth IRA and make money. That is not where you could make the money. It's about how am I going to be taxed when I need the money. You see, if you're investing your money, I know you're not investing your money because you want your money tomorrow. Of course not. You're not that emotional investor. You want your money to grow later on for retirement. That's the reason why you invest, and because you want to be wealthy. But you got to think about how's my wealth going to be taxed when I need it? Is it going to be taxed every year where it's taxed now? Is it going to be taxed later on and every withdrawal? Or is it going to be taxed never where I get a lot of tax advantages? So it's just a matter of how am I going to be taxed when I need my wealth? So that way I could know what is my tax tolerance. So people need to know two things when it comes to investment. Write this down. Number one, you must know what is your risk tolerance. And you also got to know what is your tax tolerance, right? That's the thing that nobody talks about. Nobody talks about the tax tolerance, but they will tell you about your risk tolerance. You got to know the two. You got to know how am I going to be taxed, and you got to know what is the risk, right? Once you know those two things, it helps you to know what investment do you really want to build your wealth in. And there's a lot of things that goes into understand investments, right? So it's just some of the simple things like that we got to look at. So when it's all said and done, creating all this financial foundation, just a quick check-in with you guys. How do you feel about it? Do you think that makes sense for you? If you think that makes sense, just hit that yes button, right? Hit that yes button and let me know if it makes sense when you think about your financial foundation in this manner, right? Because it's really easy to create that financial foundation if we understand what we need to have in place. So here's the next thing. Let's talk about the wealth formula, right? And this one's going to be super quick. So let's break down so now you learn the goal, right? The goal is that you want to have proper protection. I see Chantal on. So, right, Chantal, you got to have proper protection, right? Ms. Victoria, you definitely got to make sure that you manage the debts, right? Ms. Sheila Forbes, you definitely got to put yourself in a position where you could create that emergency fund. And Swan, you definitely want to understand how to invest, right? So once you understand these elements, Ms. Beverly, we could be in a winning position. So Tamika, let me tell you about why you got to understand how money works now, right? Because it's one thing to have a goal to create a financial foundation, but if you don't understand how money works, how are you going to accomplish your goal? You see, you got to have a plan. So the plan has always been the wealth formula. That's why it says money plus time plus or minus rate of return minus inflation minus tax that equals wealth. So now when you break it down, you say, well, Keyon, how do I find the money? This is the same time when you're discovering how to find your emergency fund. You got to be on a budget. So when you do the 50-20-30 formula and you figure out, well, how much out of this 20% I could pay myself first with. That's why we talk about paying yourself first so you can find the money, right? So when you find the money, you pay yourself 5 to 10%, 15% or more. And then that's the money that you're going to start your wealth formula with. So now when you start with money, now it tells you need time plus time. You got to give your money time. You can't be one of those, I like to call them the popcorn era where everybody wants something done in 5 minutes. Everybody wants something done in 2 minutes, the popcorn era. I give you money today, it's supposed to grow tomorrow. Let me tell you, if you find that place, please let me know because I have a whole bunch of money to go invest in that one, right? So guys, with everything in life, it needs time. That's why we tell you that time is money, but procrastination is the enemy of savings, right? The more you procrastinate to put your money to go to work with time, then guess what? Your money will always be late because time is something that you cannot buy. Time is something that you can't rewind. So you got to take advantage of all the time that you have and give your money time for it to build up. So that's why it also talks about the rate of return. Why is the rate of return? Now imagine that you don't have time, Chantal. Imagine you don't have time. Then what must you do? You must make sure that you find a place that give you a good earning potential for interest earnings. Right, Swan? You got to make sure that you are in a position where you could earn more interest on the money. And when it comes to borrowing money, or if you're using a credit card, or if you're getting a car note or your mortgage, you got to make sure that the interest that's against you is much lower. So that way it doesn't take away money that could have been used to build your wealth. So that's the reason why plus or minus rate of return is important, because you got to get more pluses on your side when it comes to your money, and you got to get less minuses when it comes to borrowing their money, right? That's why you got to use the rule of 72, because it gives you an indicator of when this money may double for you or what it may double against you and how many years, because time is money. But then you have to think about inflation. Why inflation? You see, inflation is a silent killer, guys. That's why it says minus inflation. You got to take that in consideration. What is my money going to be worth years from now? What is my $4,000 going to worth 20 years from now if inflation goes up? What is my buying power? So whatever costs you $4,000 on a monthly basis today, 20 years later, right? 20 years later, at a 3% inflation rate, you will need to have $7,224. So you got to look and think, well, inflation, where it is today, my money must earn at least 3% or more in order to keep up with inflation. I believe inflation right now is at 2.88%. I believe so. I believe it's at 2.8 or 82, one of them, right? So you got to think, is my money earning more than that every year in order to even keep up with inflation, the buying power, right? So you got to make sure that you have good purchasing power. Because since 1914 to 2014, the U.S. inflation rate was average 3.32%. So think about that, right? That's why it says minus inflation on the wealth formula. But now why it says minus taxes? Once again, I'll tell you this, you got to pay your taxes. Okay? Pay your taxes, man. Until we figure out a way how not to pay so much in taxes, but you got to figure out there's 3 ways your investments or your money could be taxed when you need it. Your money could either get taxed now, or your money could get taxed later, or you could get tax advantage, aka never. So what is the proper term for tax now? Tax now means that your money is taxable, means that any earnings in your accounts, either in your checking account, savings account, CD, stocks, and mutual funds, you got to report and pay tax on that. You see what the bank does is that they give you a 1099. They send out a 1099 to you, then send out a 1099 to the IRS. The IRS is like, are you going to be truthful and come report it? And if you don't report it, bam, that's when they hit you. Because they said, you little sneaky liar. You didn't want to report this. I know you got that money. It's called capital gains tax. Now, also any dividends that is taken out of your stocks, mutual funds, or money market funds, you also got to report and pay tax on that as well. All right, so just keep that in mind. That's where you get taxed now. 85% of the population believe that's the best place to save. Then you have tax later, where 10% of the population save for their retirement. They use vehicles like their 401ks, their 403bs, their IRAs, SEP IRAs, annuities, and pensions. This is what was told to you that is a retirement plan, right? So by using these retirement vehicles, then they come with rules. They said that the money is pre-tax. Pre-tax is just a fancy word. They said that you didn't pay any taxes on the money yet, but you're going to pay taxes on it later on every withdrawals. Then the rule says that the money is deferred. It's tax deferred because you didn't pay any taxes yet. But you will be taxed as ordinary income when you turn age 59 and a half. But if you take the money out before 59 and a half, then what's going to happen? It means that you will have to pay a penalty. You would have to pay a 10% penalty in addition to paying taxes. And you can't keep the money there forever, guys. You got to start taking it by your 70 and a half birthday, or you will lose 50% of your money because you failed to take out the required minimum distribution. I know that, yes, the Secure Act was passed earlier this year in January that moved that 70 and a half to 72. But the bad news is, did you check with your institution if they're going to actually upgrade their system to the new Secure Act, or you just grandfathered underneath the 70 and a half? It's important that you know that. So then you have tax advantage, where only 5% of the population know how to use. Only 5% of the population know how to use tax advantage. And all tax advantage really means is that, you won't pay tax when you withdraw the money from your account, because the money that you get from tax advantage is pre-tax money. So the money that you put in tax advantage, they tax you at this current time. And I mean, later on, like 20 years from now, when you want to retire and you need your money, you don't pay any taxes on that. The taxes are exempt because you already pay your taxes today. And when you grow to whatever it is later, you don't have to pay taxes on that at all. So that's why you must know what is your tax tolerance, not just your risk tolerance, but what is your tax tolerance in order for you to retire comfortably with a very nice tax setup. So, guys, when it's all said and done, just to summarize, right? Creating a financial foundation requires you to have a financial plan, right? So, when you use the financial foundation, that's your goal. You want to make sure that you have proper protection, managing your debt, right? You got to make sure that you have an emergency fund. You also want to know where to invest your money. And then, in order for you to tackle this goal, you got to have a plan. And the plan has always been a wealth formula. You got to have money plus time plus or minus rate of return minus inflation minus tax, and that equals wealth. Okay? That's how you win the money game, guys. That's how you keep winning. And that's the way you could go about, everything that you want to accomplish when it comes to your money. So at this very moment, as I summarize, like I said, when it comes to money, spend less, save more. When it comes to time, you got to give your money enough time for it to build up. When it comes to rate of return, the interest is very important what you're getting for your money and against your money. And when it comes to inflation, you got to make sure that the interest that you're earning on your money is higher than what inflation is. And when it comes to taxes, you must look for vehicles that give you tax advantages. Once you follow the step-by-step layout plan for you, you will win the money game. You will be in a better position to really win. And it's important that you learn how to win the money game. So at this moment, what I would like to do is that I'd like to open up the call for anyone that have any questions, right? Or they'd like to share any feedback from today, because we love getting feedbacks. If you would like to do so, please hit the yes button or the raise your hand button, so that way we could get your feedbacks, and you could share, well, what is it you think about when you think about having a financial plan and have a goal? It's almost like you knowing why you want to be wealthy, but you got to know how to become wealthy or how to build that wealth, right? So anybody have any questions, feedbacks, comments on anything that was shared today, or just in general, anything that they like to share? If so, like I said, raise your hands or press the yes button, so that way we'll go call on you to share. We'd like to hear from you guys this morning. The call is now open. All right. Good morning, Miss Victoria Gordon. You're alive.
Good morning, everybody. Great call. Keyon, could you just go over, you were mentioning about knowing the inflation rate so that you'll know, I'm not quite sure. Could you just go over that part again?
Yes. Knowing the inflation rate is very important for you to know what is the buying power and what is the value of the true value of your money. For instance, like let's say that you have $100, and let's say that inflation is at 3%. What would have cost you $100 this year, and let's say that by next year inflation rose to 3%? It will only mean that you really have a buying power of $97. So that means you may need $103 in order to buy the same thing that was $100 next year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Because I checked the rate for 2020. Okay, 0.6%. Okay.
Right. And when you're checking it, don't check it based upon the year. Check it up
Okay.
based on a 20-year spread. So that way you can think about, well, when am I going to retire? From how many years from now? What would it, kind of have an indicator of what it may be.
Yeah, I saw the indicators, so I'm like probably eon years behind because I'm just now getting this and understanding it. Because most of the people that I talk to, that most of my friends that are retired, that's close to my age or a little older, and they have to work second jobs, and it's because we didn't have things in place. So I'm trying to put some stuff in place so I can at least pull another 2 years on the job, hopefully, by me understanding my risk tolerance in these things, it'll be better. Thanks.
You're welcome. Anybody else would love to share? Or have any comments? All right, Miss Swan, you're alive. Good morning.
Good morning, Keyon and everyone. Happy Thursday. I just had a comment. I mean, although, I've been on this call for a while and I've heard you explain the wealth formula and the financial foundation a lot of times. I like the way you share it today with the conversational, and you really know your stuff. And I can't wait to the day that I'm a mini Keyon, Keyon Jr. But it just really kind of sinks in after hearing it so many times, and what we need to do. And I'm just thankful that I am on the right path and making things happen. I saw a video the other day. I'm always on YouTube, and I saw one where this lady was sharing 10 things to let you know that you're going on the right track as far as financially. And and I was surprised and happy that I had maybe 7 or 8 of the things in place. So I know that I'm on the right track to getting my finances in order. And it could not have been done had I not found WSB, or WSB found me 21 months ago. So I'm excited. I can't wait to be totally debt free and increasing my income and just getting in a very good financial place, because I do plan to retire, if you will. It's like a 10-year vested retirement in 20 months from now. So that's why I'm glad I'm getting things in place now so that I can be better prepared in the near future. So thanks for letting me share.
Are you very welcome, Swan? And yeah, I think I feel the same way. I feel the same way. I thank God my cousin called me, in 2013, that Wednesday night. I almost ignored his phone call, but something said picked up. Changed my life. It was the best decision I ever made in my life. That's why my quote, I said that you are one decision away from changing your future for the better. So you got to always remember the choice is always yours, right? And man, let me tell you, if you use the financial goal, which is the financial foundation, the goal, and if you follow the plan where they lay down to you, money plus time plus or minus rate of return, and you took what I said today and it broke it down, I promise you, you will see results. And then we always ask that question in the workbook. Is money controlling you, or do you control money? Because the problem is that many of us want to build wealth, but you have no steps, no structure, no path to follow if you didn't have someone that told you a way. So how do you gain control? Is by knowing why and how. Once you know why and how, you are in control. What your wealth will be versus a rich person's wealth is based upon how much money you pay yourself. And over time, that money will grow. And you have more money to make you more money. But it's just a matter of having to know the goal and what's the plan. I'll kid you not, guys. Follow the plan. But you got to know why. All right? So with that said, guys, I appreciate you all for always being on Money Talk. I hope I bring a lot of value within your life. I think Money Talk has almost been a year, if not a year already. And it's just beautiful. It is just beautiful what we're doing here. And Like I said, if I change just one person's life on Money Talk, I feel accomplished. I feel fulfilled. I could take that to the grave with me and know that, hey, I impact one person's life. And if one person could be affected by this, I know that affect a whole bunch of other family members. And if that one person could affect a change for their whole family, that's all that matters. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the recognitions. I just care about the legacy. That's why we be Shana's legacy. Because our legacy is to empower everybody. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. We want everybody to win. There's enough food that everybody can eat and eat and eat. Right? We just got to give everybody an opportunity to be at the table to get a plate. That's what Money Talks for. Right? So I thank you guys, for always being awesome. I appreciate you all. It's been a wonderful day. And on the count of three, let's all wish out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Let's push. Whoosh.
Whoosh.
World team.
World
One
team.
team.
One
One
team.
dream. One
One
system.
dream.
One
One
cause.
system. One cause.
Woo.
Yes.
Woo.
Have a great day,
Have a
everyone.
great day, everybody.
Have a good
Have a
day,
great
everybody.
day.
Have a good day.
God bless.